In a world where truth is often twisted, we strip away the illusions. Every wound has a root, every lie has a pattern, and every survivor deserves clarity. This is The Breakdown. Real talk, real recovery. Powered by the Church of Real Talk and the Now Movement. Stay powerful.
Parental alienation is one of the least understood forms of psychological abuse, not because it's rare, but because it hides inside something society calls parenting conflict. But the research is clear. When a child is taught to reject a loving parent, the damage doesn't stay in childhood. It follows them into adulthood as depression, identity confusion, broken trust, and a lifelong sense of emotional homelessness. This isn't just a custody issue. This is trauma with paperwork. So, let's break down what the studies are actually telling us, and why the pain so many parents carry is not imagined, exaggerated, or deserved.
Greetings, Minister Robinson here, Church of Real Talk, founder of the Now Movement. Welcome to another installment of The Breakdown. Today we're talking about parental alienation, a very serious thing, and it does fall under narcissistic abuse. After you break free from the narcissist, after you leave the relationship, you would think that everything is, you just got to stay no contact, you just got to keep it moving, and everything will be fine. But if you have children with them, that's not the case. The narcissist always needs to feel that they are in control. And when they notice that you're going no contact, you're not really feeding into the craziness anymore, what they do is they begin to look for things to weaponize. There's this thing in conflicts, it's called the rules of engagement. There's just certain things that you can't do during a conflict. And if you do it, basically the whole world comes against you and say, hey, listen, you didn't follow the rules of engagement, thereby we've got to punish you. This, for some strange reason, doesn't follow the narcissist. You would think that the children would be off limit. They have nothing to do with this. They shouldn't be punished, mentally crippled, because the narcissist needs a sense of control. This falls under the fact that the narcissist doesn't have empathy. You would think, hey, listen, you're their parent. You are their parent. Let's make sure, past everything else, past your feelings about me, past everything, let's make sure that the children have a healthy life. Again, rules of engagement. The narcissist looks at that and says, I'm not doing that. What I'm doing is I'm going out there and I'm going to regain control of the narrative. And if I have to use your children to do that, that's what I'm going to do. It hurts the child. It scars the child. It's a wound that the child will carry throughout their life. But again, we don't use feelings here at The Breakdown. We use facts, we use research, we use data to hammer home the point, to make others aware, to give clarity. If this video hits you, do me a favor and go ahead and subscribe. Or share it with someone that is going through parental alienation. It's a sad state of affairs. But here I am bringing feelings into it. Let's go ahead and start with the facts.
What alienation really is. A 2022 study of adults who were alienated from a parent as children found that 95% reported long-term emotional distress, including guilt, shame, and the feeling that they never fully knew who they were allowed to be. Because alienation doesn't just separate a child from a parent. It separates a child from their own reflection. Here's what that looks like in real life.
So, let's get this clear. This is not a parenting disagreement. We're not talking about what school they should go to. We're not talking about where the focus of their study should be. We are talking about identity theft. Fracturing a child's identity. When we look at a child, we call children innocent. And the reason why we do that is because children just have two basic needs: love and be loved. And as they grow up, this is what helps form their identity. What happens is the child is trained to question who they're allowed to love, not what they actually feel. The child is conditioned in such a way to see one parent is all good and one is all bad. And this is straight out of the narcissist playbook, because the narcissist doesn't see gray lines. Again, the rules of engagement, that doesn't matter. The child is being forced to say that one parent is all good and one parent is all bad. And this information is constantly fed into the child. Again, there is nothing that has anything to do with the rules of engagement when it comes to the narcissist. They kind of know what they're doing. What they're doing is they're trying to impress their image onto that child, because they're mad at the other parent. And the child needs to be recruited into that war. That's the only way that child serves a purpose for the narcissist. I've said this often, the narcissist cares about nothing whatsoever but themselves. The children are just collateral damage. The mission is, I must hurt the other parent. And I will use anything that I can get my hands on to do that. And I don't care what happens. As long as my goal is reached, as long as I win this war, it doesn't matter. So what if the child is scarred? The research shows it, but I don't care. That's not my concern. My concern is I need to regain control of the narrative. That hurts. As a parent, to know that your child is being manipulated, to know that your child is being gaslit, to know that your child is being emotionally manipulated into a war that they have nothing whatsoever to do with. The rules of engagement state, children shall be left off of the battlefield. Children shall not pick up arms in defense of. Those are the rules of engagement. And a little later, we're going to get into how society is failing us and making sure that the rules of engagement are actually followed.
What it does to the child. In a study of more than 6,800 adults, researchers found that childhood exposure to parental alienation doubled the likelihood of depression and reduced overall life satisfaction, even decades later. The body grows. The nervous system never forgets, and this is the part no one warns the children about.
So that is actually a real study. You can't make this stuff up. It does a lot of damage to the child. It really does. It creates confusion about love, loyalty, and self-worth. Important ingredients to a child's growth. They learn that connection equals choosing sides, not feeling safe. Choosing sides, you're forcing a child to choose one parent over the other. And I mean literally forcing it. That's why they need to alienate the child. It falls right back into domestic narcissistic abuse. When you're in a situationship with a narcissist, this is what they do. They isolate so that they can feed the venom, the poison into their supposed partner. They're doing this to a child, a young mind, a mind that's just beginning to form. Again, as the kids would say, no shame in their game. You know, why would you do this knowingly to a child? Why? You know, it forces the child to abandon half of their emotional lineage. They're forcing the child because in the same way that narcissistic abuse plays out with adults, they're doing the same thing. Either you follow what I am telling you or you will be punished. And it feels more safer for the child. You can't blame the child for wanting to feel secure. It's like, okay, well, I really don't see this other person. This other person, for whatever reason, is not in my life right now. And it gives the narcissist that control that they crave so much. Because now the child has to choose themselves. I'm safer if I don't mention the other parent. I'm safer if I don't say anything about the other parent. I'm definitely safer if I don't say I miss the other parent. You know, Loving the erased parent becomes a risk. So they begin the disconnection process. The narcissist loves this, and it creates trauma. I talk often about trauma, how empaths experience trauma at the early stages of their life. It's just starting to make sense to you here. I mentioned how narcissists, they are formed by trauma. And it's almost, they're force-feeding trauma into this child's mind. I mean, you're just giving them trauma. They're not asking for it. You're just going to give it to them. You're going to tell them that, hey, listen, if we're going to act as if your other parent doesn't exist, and everything will be fine as long as you act that way. That's a hard load for a child to carry at an early age. And even as adults, they feel wrong for wanting the parent they were taught to reject. Notice the phrasing that I use. They were taught to reject. It hurts. It hurts on so many levels, especially, and that's why I do these videos. That's why I do the breakdowns, to bring clarity, to help people understand what is going on. It's sad. It's really sad. And the levels get even deeper. The levels just continue to go on. Again, it's not about the child. It's not about the child's well-being. It's not about the child's mental health. It's about striking back and gaining control over the narrative with the other parent, who was actually seen through the mask and said, hey, I see what you are. I don't want to deal with you. But again, and I'm going to say this over and over, the children should be off limits as far as this is concerned. But again, we always deal with facts. So let's just bring up another fact right now.
The targeted parent. Researchers found that alienation almost never happens because the rejected parent is unsafe, but because the alienating parent needs psychological control, even if it damages the child to get it. The healthier parent is not removed because they failed the child. They are removed because they threatened the narrative, and the world almost always believes the louder storyteller.
In hindsight, it's always in hindsight. I kind of blame myself for this. I should have saw this coming. When I first got in a relationship with a narcissist, they kind of did the same thing, but me having a moral compass put a stop to it. I mean, the person hates me to this day, but I wonder if they know that I actually advocated for the fact of don't keep his children away from him. I mean, I should have saw this. This was the red flag that, again, as survivors, we always say, oh, I should have saw that coming. Yeah, I mean, constantly, he did a lot of batshit crazy stuff, but at the same time, that had nothing to do with the children. The way that I look at it is the same way I'm presenting to you right now. Rules of engagement, the children have nothing to do with this, and yes, it kind of, if you listen to the narcissist long and hard, the victim stories, and that this person is a bad person and this person is not a good parent and all of this, you kind of start to believe it, because remember, you've been recruited to be the savior in this shit show that's the narcissist. So you're thinking that you're the savior, but one thing that I always said was, no, the kids have nothing to do with it. Let him stay in contact with his children. And I find that probably the same thing is going on. The same thing is going on. Those around the narcissist are being told whatever. I have no clue. I'm not even going to waste the brain neurons to think about it, but are being told whatever to support the narcissist's actions, which is to alienate me from my children. This is basically the job of the flying monkeys. Not everyone in this world can be built like other people. So whereas I advocated for a person that made it clear they hated my guts, I advocated for the fact of, hey, listen, that's their father. You can't take that away from them. I'm sure that there are people that just don't have that moral compass that are saying, oh, yeah, whatever you say, as long as it keeps peace in here, alienate them. And it's sad because, once again, the the healthier parent is removed because they need to be manipulated. The narcissist needs to feel in control. Again, like the study says, in most cases, there's no harm to the children. This is actually the healthier parent. This is the parent that is not trying to manipulate the children. When I used to meet with my children online, I made it very clear, I'm not going to discuss the other parent. It's for us. This is our time together. Yet and still the narcissist would jump on any time that they felt needed to start chaos and start an argument, to where I just said, this is not about you. This is about the children. So at the end of the day, I'm not going to feed into this. See, that's when I saw the alienation. And I'm just sharing this, again, always facts over feelings. I saw the process slowly beginning. I'm told that I need to pay cable bills in order to meet with my children online. My children are told that any activities that we did that was considered fun, they were told they could no longer do it. So yes, this is real. This is real, and the sad, and I keep on saying that word, but the heart-crushing thing about this is that this is retaliation. This is retaliation disguised as protection. So once again, we know the narcissist needs to be either the hero or the victim in every story that they tell. We know this. This is just a fact. They can't help themselves. There's nothing but I'm either the hero or I'm the victim in this story. 75% of the time, if it's a covert narcissist, to gain compassion, to gain support, they will be the victim. Most of their stories will be victim stories. And what they're doing is they're recruiting people, friends, family members, to take part in this by playing victim. Now, when it was done to me, I kind of stood on my ground. It's like, no, this is this person's children. And I would hear the stories like, well, he said this about you. That doesn't matter. Again, rules of engagement. That part doesn't matter. How they feel about me doesn't matter. We're talking about children. This person is being painted as unsafe, everything else. Again, I can only imagine what is being said about me. Not that I really care. All I care about is my children. But there should be a gentle reminder and a gentle warning to most people that this is, once again, not your fault. This is not something, I know it feels hard when you are grieving a child that's still alive, when you are missing someone that is still alive. Maybe just a few miles away from you. Maybe they're still on this planet. And that's a hard feeling for a parent. But we have to remember what and who we are dealing with. See, only a demon would want to harm a child, knowingly harm a child. Again, we're talking about case studies. The narcissist is just like when you were in the relationship with the narcissist, they are full aware of the damage that they are doing. It just doesn't matter to them. All that matters is that they always feel that they are superior. And in order for them to feel superior, they need to feel that they are in control. And then they surround themselves with people just to keep this narrative going. They surround themselves with people that have a lower moral standard. So you may feel as if, well, doesn't somebody see what's going on? Why is no one saying anything? Well, not everybody is built like you. Not everybody has the same moral compass that you have. Some people just don't care. They see the damage, they see the harm, and all they're going to do is turn a blind eye because they brought into the victim story. But I think I'm kind of dipping into the feeling stage, so let's come up with some more fact.
Why the system fails. Multiple studies point to the same problem. Courts and agencies are trained to manage conflict, not emotional manipulation, which means the parent who weaponizes the child often appears like the one trying to protect them. The system reads documents. The child lives the consequences. And that's why so many parents grieve a child who is still alive.
So why does the system fail us? The alienated parent, why do they fail us? Why does the legal system just across the board fail? Well, in defense of the court system that deals with family matters and divorce, here's the thing. Their directive is to look out for what is in the best interest of the child or children. And they really do try to adhere to that, but they're not built for narcissistic manipulation. And the narcissist has lived their whole life manipulating people. From their flying monkeys to their teachers to the people at their job place, they just manipulate people, especially in relationships. And they have studied you. And they will walk into any courtroom and they will start trying to trigger you as soon as you walk in that door. This is why I make so many videos about how to gain stability, how to gain balance, and most importantly, how to break the trauma bond. Because your reaction is based off of that trauma bond. Because for some strange reason, someplace in the back of your mind, if you're still struggling with getting out of the trauma bond, you still feel an attachment to this person. You are still looking at this person as being human. The reality of this matter is you're done with them. All you're there for is your children. That's all you should be there for. Now, I am by no way a lawyer. If you need legal advice, go seek it. There's a lot of different organizations out there. If you can afford to go ahead and get a lawyer, go ahead and get a lawyer. Don't take anything I'm saying as the gospel. But the importance of going no contact, and if you have children, staying gray rock, you start to see the value of it once you get in front of a judge or a mediator. Since you know the narcissist is going to trigger you, what you have to do is, and this is the way that I look at it, is courts are looking at anything that is factual. That's all they deal with is factual. And in the case of family court and divorce court, their mandate is for what is in the best interest of the child or children. So, as with any other case, you should come in like you are actually doing an episode of The Breakdown. Facts over feelings. Facts over feelings. I understand you're in a lot of pain and that this is done strategically. This is done on purpose. They know it's coming. They know they're going to get the documents. They know they're going to have to answer to their behavior. But as long as you keep facts over feelings, you find that it will go a whole lot better. And as I do research on this, and it varies from state to state, that the courts frown on parental alienation. The only thing is, you've got to be able to prove it. You've got to be able to bring facts to the court. Again, we go back to the front of the ranch. This is why you stay no contact. Anything that needs to be said can be done in writing. That way there's no confusion. Nobody can get upset. Oh, Your Honor, I didn't mean it that way. They misunderstood what I said. If it's in writing, there's no misunderstanding. If it's sent in a text message, you can't misunderstand that. If it's sent in an email, you can't misunderstand that. If it's sent by the postal service, there's no misunderstanding. Another thing that I'm always going to tell people to do is you have to have a really, really deep moral compass, because I understand you are upset. It feels like a piece of you is being torn from you. Don't go out there and be like the narcissist and smear them. That just confuses the child even more. Don't say bad things about the narcissist. Even though what the narcissist is doing is evil and cruel, it's of no concern to the children. Again, front of the ranch. Children just want to love and be loved. You have to get out of your feelings. You have to get out of your anger. You have to get out of your emotions. You've got to start thinking with the rules of engagement. Follow the rules of engagement. Children are off limit. Don't drag them into your side of the war. They've been damaged enough. As far as the flying monkeys, as far as people that are actually going along with this behavior, again, the courts frown on this. The only thing is you got to be able to prove it. If you can prove it, the court will actually decide that, hey, listen, this is not in the best interest of the child. See, children, as they're forming their identity, it's kind of sad because you're forcing them to either become prey or predator. You're locking them into becoming an empath or a narcissist. And sometimes, just sometimes, as a parent, I always want the best for my children. So I never want to be the one that forces trauma upon them. They have watched as the narcissist has jumped on the camera during the Zoom and started yelling and raging out, and I just look. I need uninterrupted time with my children. Again, they need to have that control. They need to control the narrative. And you have to, and I hate to say this, but you've got to get out of your feelings. You've got to start dealing with nothing but facts. And it's so important because you're not just talking about yourself, you're talking about children. I don't care whose children it is. We can't force people to always have the same moral compass that we have. We can't force people to understand, hey, there's rules to this. There's this thing called rules of engagement. Leave the children out of it. We can't do that. But we can control ourselves. We can control our emotions. We can control our feelings, not just for ourselves, but for our children. And with that being said, I want to thank you for joining me right here on The Breakdown. Again, if you saw any clarity in this, if this helped in any way possible, consider subscribing to the channel. The Now Movement is dedicated to unmasking the narcissist. We're dedicated to giving people actionable tips to break free from the trauma bond. We are the movement. We understand that there is no other way. With that being said, Minister Robinson, Church of Real Talk, founder of the Now Movement, and the reason why I do everything that I do, love you guys.
If you're a parent living through this, or a child still healing from it, the research confirms what your body already knows. This was never your fault. This was never love. And the silence around it has protected the wrong people for far too long. Now it's time for the ones who lived it to speak.